Welcome to Reform Reference. I'm John L. This is the podcast where we draw from the rich wisdom of Reformed theology to challenge and strengthen our understanding of God's Word. In each episode, we'll bring you powerful quotes from dead Reformed theologians, offering insights that are as relevant today as they were when they were first spoken. Whether you're new to Reformed thought or a seasoned believer, you'll find that these timeless voices have much to teach us. Join us as we explore the depths of doctrine, apologetics, and the Christian life through the lens of the Reformers and the Puritans.
Well, welcome to the Reform Reference podcast. I'm John L. I have a special guest here, Jerry.
Hey, thanks, John.
Oh, you're welcome. And this is episode 6. We're in season 1, doing Greg Bahnsen. And we've been reading this book, Van Til's Apologetic. And since Jerry is a chemistry teacher, it's a real Bahnsen burner. So I had to get that in.
I like that one.
I surprised him with
the king of puns over here.
King of puns, yeah. And Jerry's reading it too with a bunch of other brothers. And he found an interesting quote on page 37, which will pop up on your screen in a second, and we're going to hopefully unpack it. So do you have any other background words you want to say about your scientist or?
Yeah, no, we'll get into that a little bit later, but
Okay.
I'm just thankful to be here, John. I'm glad you asked me to come. I'm going to enjoy this.
We're going to wing it here. So this will be great. The quote, which will appear on your screen, is on page 37. And it is Christian theism must be defended against non-theistic science. And the reason I had Jerry come on is because he has a background in science, I believe a bachelor's degree in it.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, Jerry, what piqued your interest in this quote?
So, like you said, John, I do have my vocation is a scientist.
Mhm.
I have a bachelor's in biology and in chemistry, and I worked as a chemist for a lot of years, and I'm currently, past 20 years or so, a chemistry teacher. So, but I'm also a believer, right? So
Amen.
that's
Yeah,
like
that's
in
so
both circles, in my science circles, like you can't be a Christian, you're a scientist. In my Christian circles, like you can't be a scientist, you're a Christian. It's like,
Yes.
wait, what is this? Why is this conflict of these things here? And it shouldn't be. That's like, Christians, you have faith, and scientists, you guys have facts. Like,
Yeah.
wait, something doesn't seem right here. Like, so that's one reason, and another is a lot of times when we get into discussions with people, believers and non-believers, I'll come to a point where I'll say, how did you come to that conclusion? And it's usually met with silence. And so is usually the follow-up question of, so according to what standard? What's your standard?
Yes.
But generally when pressed,
Yeah.
I'll often get, well, my standard is science.
Science.
Yes. A faulty worldview, a faulty standard, but it's a standard at least.
Yeah, so you mentioned that. Let's unpack your statement. First, I can understand unbelievers accusing you of ignoring evidence, but believers?
Yeah, so that's interesting because there's kind of two camps. Well, there's more than two camps, but I would consider myself what's called a presuppositionalist, which I believe you do too.
Yeah.
And usually you get this argument from evidentialists. You guys ignore the evidence. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
God never asked us to blindly follow him, right?
Like,
the evidence supports our faith. We start with God, right? We start with God. God's the creator. We start with God. Then if we have to bring evidence into support our claims, we do. But we don't ignore evidence. That would be ridiculous, right?
Yes.
So that's where I get it from them.
Now, as far as calling, I believe science alone, I would clarify that, as a faulty standard, that's bold.
I agree. That probably does deserve some clarification.
Yes. Yeah.
So science, as we see it, like in a laboratory, like empirical, irrefutable data.
Yep.
Like we know for a fact that pure water at sea level will boil at 100 degrees Celsius. That's science. It's fact. We know how to make aluminum cans. We know how to we use science and technology to do these things. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when it becomes a worldview. When they use science as a worldview to try and answer questions on morality or different things. That's kind of where I leave that. That's faulty in that sense. When you take it out of the laboratory and try to apply it, it becomes a worldview. and it's very faulty.
Yeah, and without going too far off our script, one guy asked me one time, "Can you prove the resurrection of Jesus Christ scientifically?" I'm like, "It's a historical event,
Right?
How am I supposed to repeat that in the lab?" You know,
So you're gonna say that all historical records
all
are
historical
a
records are
question, then, right?
non-scientific. Yeah, that's true.
So,
Nobody would know history.
like, how do we know George Washington was our first president?
Or he crossed the Delaware at Christmas
Right,
Eve.
right.
Yeah, no, I know.
Eyewitnesses, so can't refute that, right?
No, and I think the other question too that it comes up with on question 4 there, how did you come to the conclusion that this worldview, I guess I would call it scientism, is faulty? That's only science.
But John, that's kind of a simple observation.
Yeah.
Just look at the news. All the controversial issues are revolved around science, right?
True. COVID vaccines.
Yeah, how to handle COVID, or electric cars, good or bad.
Yeah.
Climate change, abortion. It goes on and on and on. So if science is your source of your standard, what happens if this scientist who agrees with, I don't know, say he agrees with 5 out of 6 things that you agree with, so he doesn't agree, you don't line up on the 6th thing. What do you do then?
Yeah.
So, like, how do you make him? So now you choose a different scientist to try and find a scientist who agrees with all of your points of view. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And it's interesting. You made me think of, and this is off the cuff here. Ben Stein had a video called "Expelled," No Intelligence Allowed. So if you didn't agree with their materialist agenda, you didn't get tenure. You didn't get lots of accolades that the scientific community bestows on people.
Right.
Brilliant. So can you illustrate how you would use evidence as a presuppositionalist?
I'll do that. But here's something interesting that I think you'll find interesting. As a chemistry teacher, I've taught through several different chemistry books.
Yep.
And even I remember this in college. They make this bold claim. Let me read what it says here. It says, it'll claim that, it'll say, when they're talking about the origin of elements.
Yeah.
They're talking about the origin, the evolution of elements. That's great, right? We're not talking about elements, the evolution of non-living things, right? They'll say, there was nothing. Then bang, there was something. They so want to dismiss God that they'll go on the record and say nothing created everything, but because they don't want to believe that there's a God, right? But we're going to say nothing. That's rational, correct?
Yes. Well, yeah, it flips over.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Yeah, and so go ahead.
Actually, I'm going to now elaborate. So here's an interesting thing too. So back in the 1800s, the theory of evolution was gaining some momentum.
Yeah.
What was quietly happening that most people don't realize, that at the same time was the invent of the electron microscope. So we're starting to see the inside of the cell.
Yes.
So what they're claiming to be the simple cell that happened by chance ain't very simple at all.
No.
Right? So they're starting to identify organelles, those internal structures. Maybe you remember some of those things.
Yeah, like mitochondria.
Yeah, the mitochondria, right?
You remember that biology,
right?
Not just in the script. That was a tough class.
I think everyone's the mighty mitochondria kind of taught you, right? The powerhouse of the
Golgi
cell.
complex.
The Golgi, there's another one, yeah.
I did pay attention.
So maybe you remember things like meiosis and mitosis.
And cell division.
Right, that's cell division, right?
Yes.
So if you remember back in high school, those are complicated processes. We try to, as a biology teacher, we try to teach them, and the kids yawn, oh, please stop, we don't care.
Yeah.
But I teach it that way for a reason. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
That had to be there from the beginning.
Yes.
The very first cell had to know a couple things. It had to know, one, how to divide itself, how to replicate.
Yes.
It also had to know what things were healthy for it and what things were toxic. It had to know how to get rid of those toxic things so it's going to die. And guess what happens when that cell dies?
It can't evolve.
It can't evolve, right?
No, dead things don't evolve. Yeah.
Dead things don't evolve.
I'll go on record. I think he would agree with me that if Darwin had the most powerful microscopes of today, he wouldn't have said that it's simple protoplasm.
I agree, because it's just, but that theory had taken so much momentum prior to this happening that it was hard to go. So who's suppressing the evidence here, actually, at this point, right?
They are.
Yeah. Who's suppressing the evidence?
Yeah, it's Romans chapter 1.
Yeah. So with that too, right? Because the next cell when the next cell comes into existence, say that first one dies,
yeah,
and they don't know how to replicate, the second cell has nothing to reference. So how does it know it needs to develop these things? It doesn't.
It's impossible. Yeah.
You know what the interesting thing is, too, another interesting thing is science yet today, with all the correct raw materials, have yet to be able to create a living cell.
They can't.
Every cell is derived from another living cell.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
It's very interesting. And I think what you mentioned here, something about plant cells, I was interested in that photosynthesis, and animal cells don't die.
Well, something to that effect. So let's just put it this way. You know, the difference between animal cells and plant cells is this. Animal cells don't have photosynthesis. Plant cells do.
Yeah.
Plant cells are the only cells that can capture the energy from the sun and convert it into an energy source for animal cells.
Yeah.
Right? Animals survive by eating a plant or something that ate the plant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So an animal cell sitting out in the sun would die.
Yeah.
It would die. So, now if you remember how complicated photosynthesis was, the very first cell had to have photosynthesis in place because out in the sun, it's going to die.
Yeah.
So you remember the photosynthesis we did. The photosynthesis, you have all the parts and all the different things, ATP, ATPase. You have the Krebs cycle, the Calvin cycle, the Calvin cycle, and the dark cycle, same thing. You had all these different parts, these parts of the photosynthesis. That all had to be there with the very first cell.
Yeah.
Including all the things we talked about. Does that sound rational?
No. Their view, yeah.
And their worldview, oh yes, it's possible.
It's
possible.
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
No, that's very interesting. And how does that tie into? I think you mentioned the days of creation are being important.
So listen, yeah. So I'm going to put you on the test. I'm going to quiz John a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is important. Follow along here. Because who had it right? If I'm a presuppositionist priest, I'm going with God. I can simply say, "Hey, God said He created everything, and He created it."
Yeah.
So, and then that's it. But let me push it a little further. So let me ask you a couple questions. What was created on day one, John?
Light.
So there's always light.
Yes.
Correct. All right, good. And day two?
The firmament and the water appeared.
Great.
Separated. Separated.
Yep. Day three?
Plants.
Ooh, plants. So we have light, and we have plants. Do we have man yet?
No.
Day four?
The sun and the moon.
So now we got a separate source of light, so there's still light. And then, day five?
Fish and birds.
Now we've got animals, and then
man,
God had it right.
Yes.
He knew in the beginning we had to have plants first, because plants are going to take the energy from the sun.
Yes.
So again, who's suppressing the evidence?
They are.
Who's suppressing the evidence?
Yeah, and basically here we're going to really ad-lib it to recap as we come to a close and to make sure you, the audience, understand. We've covered a lot, and we probably have a hard time saying that science alone is a faulty standard. That's strong language. And I don't know if you'd like to further clarify that on the last page.
So, as we kind of alluded to, and we're going to say it out loud, I know that science, the way most people look at it, outside of the the empirical evidence, it's a worldview.
It's a worldview.
It comes down to the interpretation of data.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my students all the time when we're looking at the fossil, we do not ignore the fossil record.
Yeah.
We have the same equipment. We're looking at the same fossil record as the scientists are.
Yeah.
Our interpretation is different.
Correct.
You have to ask yourself which interpretation is more accurate, right? Yeah. What's more logical? What's rational? Whose interpretation is more accurate? Right? Because now it just becomes a worldview.
It basically boils down to we believe somebody made something from nothing. They believe nobody made something.
Nothing. Not even.
So it's like, and it's also, there's synonyms for it. I teach synonyms for a living as a librarian. There's naturalism, materialism. He mentioned the worldview of a scientism, where science alone determines truth, but that statement itself cannot be proven scientifically.
Right. And again, we go back to the scientific community. They can't agree on things. Outside of the empirical evidence, they can't agree on much.
No.
So I think part of the worldview, and I think this is very accurate. I feel even Christians, I think, fall into this. I feel a lot of scientists and Christians look at science as a worldview, and I think they think the goal of science is to prove that there is no God.
Yeah. And I would add, and I would maybe have Jerry come on again to do the age of the earth, because I think Christians kowtow to science to make the earth billions and billions of years old.
And the evidence doesn't show that.
And I don't believe you can watch the video is Genesis history. We recommend that. And that's peer reviewed from a guy that's got a degree in science. Anyway, so thank you. That was fascinating for coming on. And I want to leave you guys with this. And if you has any further words to elaborate, the heart of the matter of what Greg Bahnsen is saying, I can bring the quote back up on the screen, is that Christianity must be defended not from scientific facts, as this brother was arguing, but from the false claim that science only works in a godless universe. Science based on observation is good and biblical, but as we said, scientism, the concept that something is only true if science can prove it, is self-defeating and false. And as he said, the evidence, the data from science, it never exists in a vacuum. It is always within a worldview. And it's always interpreted that way.
Yeah, no, 100% correct. Yeah, I agree with that totally.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
And, we were working on the script today, and he's my running partner, and I truly truly am enjoying our friendship in Christ.
And I'm thinking, as my theological mentor, I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah.
That you would
Thank
trust me
you
with
for
this.
coming on and subscribe to that podcast. God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Reform Reference. I hope the wisdom of these faithful theologians has deepened your understanding and encouraged you in your walk with Christ. As we close, remember that the truths of Scripture and the insights of the Reformers are not just for yesterday, they are for today and for all generations. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and continue to meditate on the rich heritage we've been given. Until next time, keep seeking the truth that sets us free. Sola Deo Gloria.